Representative Wilder. I'm going to read in House Bill 156, please.
Mr. Chairman and members, this is House Bill 156 by Representative Wilder. It repeals provision of law relative to recreation or meal periods for minors.
Representative Wilder, on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, our governor's primary focus was establishes crime, education, and economy. And economy portion certainly includes business and employment. So this bill is about maximizing employment and providing employers with the workforce that they need. Through this dialogue, I attempt to convey that this bill is a positive for both team members and employers, regardless of the name and the words that have been thrown around. We've heard both the governor and Ms. Susie Schoen from the Workforce Commission have both said repeatedly, removing barriers and removing burdensome regulation, and in this case, obsolete regulation, is what we need to be doing to help businesses move forward. Barriers such as additional paperwork, fines, loss of productivity, more incentives to simply not hire minors, unnecessary conflicts between team members and their managers. Those are barriers. The obsolete aspects are, number one, this law is 2024. It's 47 years old. Today, as opposed to 47 years ago, we have numerous federal laws that have evolved. We have collegiate courses in something called human resources that I think in the 70s and 60s probably didn't even exist. Franchises are everywhere, and they are absolute double, triple covering with their processes and policies. Today we have cell phones. There's a camera on every phone. One example is McDonald's currently sends out team member surveys to their minor team members to check and see how things are going. So there's a number of things that are happening in the last 47 years that have made this law obsolete. And I guess the last piece would be proponents of this repeal, because all we're doing is repealing an obsolete law. They reject the notion that a 16 or a 17-year-old in Louisiana, that only in our state that these individuals are not able to decide on their own if they want to stay at a part-time job in a market where there are thousands of like-kind openings with now hiring signs everywhere. I think our young adults, because when I hear the word minor, I think of an 8 or a 9-year-old. When I hear 16 and 17-year-old, I think of a young adult. I believe that our young adults can make decisions without a babysitter. I believe this age group is plenty capable of deciding if they would like to change jobs if they're in an environment that does not help them. And for the record, every business I've spoken to offers all team members a break. They're just forced to ask their minor team members to sit down for a full 30 minutes, don't do anything because the law says so. So I'm ready to take any questions and explain where we're going with this, sir.
Representative Wilder, I had a DECA teacher come to me and say, we're having problems getting teenagers hired, and I asked why, and it had to do with this issue exactly, and then I polled some local restaurateurs, and apparently there were whole chains in our area in northwest Louisiana that wouldn't hire any minors at all because of this rule. Do you feel that is predominant throughout the state?
I feel that's a fact, because when I was 16 years old, I applied at a business in Metairie, and my friend ran it, and he said, oh, sorry, we don't hire before you're 18, and he cited this exact thing in 1992. And
what's the fine if you don't give that break?
Well, the fine differs. There's a number of pieces in this. So the fine is $500 per occurrence, and then there's been, in the recent years, there's been a number of adjustments made. So it's like, well, if they take a 22-minute break now, it's okay because we amended it to be 20 minutes. Mr. Chairman, it's not necessarily the fines. It's the administrative headache. If you work a Thursday night shift, 4:30 to 9:30, and I'm the manager, and I got off at 3 o'clock, and you arbitrarily, because you're an initiative-based team member, clock back in at 15 minutes because you want to go back to work and earn your wage, I have to come in and fill out a piece of paperwork and address that with you. The problem is the next time you work is Sunday and I'm off. So then this piece of paperwork has to carry for days and days and days, and then we hear so much, and I agree with that, our teachers are burdened with so many pieces of administrative add-ons to do their job. Any small business owner or any manager of a quick service establishment, or most places where these young adults would work, it's the same types of burdens. So unfortunately, the disincentive is to just go out and say, you know what, it's easier to hire someone who's 18. The labor market for the day shifts in most of these environments are college kids or young or adults. It's the evening shifts when a high school kid can work. And there's abundant labor. If you're talking 18 to 17, there's enough in the evening to where it's easier to say, you know what, we don't really need to go chase the minors because it adds a bunch of extra stuff onto our plate.
Representative Phelps.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Rep. Wilder. When you mentioned that they can change a job on their own, what do you mean by that?
Well, it's a free market. Nobody forces anybody to stay at a place of employment. I have kids quit in our business when we ask them to tuck their shirt in. I'd like to think that if they weren't given a meal period break, that they're going to leave on time. I mean, hey, can you tuck your shirt in? I had enough. I'm out. That's what we get.
And I wasn't able to tie that into the bill, so that's why I was asking. Are you saying they would leave because they don't want a break and they're asked for a break?
No,
that
ma'am.
wasn't really clear how you were
No, ma'am.
using
I'm
that.
simply saying that there is no necessity for them to be expected to not have their own wherewithal to understand that they can just get up and leave. There's no contract signed. There's no forced, you have to stay here. They willfully apply to a job. For any number of reasons, they can resign.
Okay, right. And I was trying to tie that into the
Yes,
bill.
ma'am.
I missed the point where you
Okay.
were making that
Yeah,
they
no
can
worries.
leave, though the bill is about break time. So I missed that comment when you said they can leave. How are you tying that into the bill?
The presumption is we need the state to tell business owners how to treat 16 and 17-year-old employees with respect to offering a break. The fact is, the hard majority of business owners and operators see their team as the most valuable asset that is not even listed on their balance sheet.
Okay, so you were relatively saying if they don't want to take a break, or if they do want to take a break without this law, then they can go to another job.
No, ma'am, that's not what I said. What I'm saying is that right now in my business and in many businesses that are quick service restaurants, most of the team members we hire have initiative. Otherwise, they don't show up to want to work. When they show up to want to work, they it's a 5-hour, 6-hour shift after school or on a weekend, and they say, you know what, I want my wage. I'd like to go sit down for 10 minutes if I want to and grab a bite to eat. But I'd like to clock back on and start working when I'm done instead of sitting there idle for 20 more minutes or whatnot. If I were an employee, there's 1,000 reasons I could have a grievance with my employer. So if the state is removed from this process, as it is, this doesn't exist in Texas, this doesn't exist in Mississippi, this doesn't exist in Tennessee. I own businesses in Mississippi. It's the same business, and it's right across the Pearl River, and all of a sudden, it's like, well, wait, that's not a problem. But my point is, there's a free market. If an individual's working in an establishment that treats them bad in any way, they can resign. So if a team member says, if an employer says, you're not going to get a break because the state doesn't make me, that team member can offer a resignation and leave whatever restaurant in that strip center or whatever GameStop or pick a business, retail restaurant, whatever. They go right next door to the now hiring sign and they apply.
Okay. And I have heard you talk about this for some time. Just didn't know that the bill was coming. So this is a state law, not any type of around any federal regs.
Correct.
And you mentioned the minor. You really believe a minor at 16 or 17 is a young adult?
I do. I do. We treat them as such in the state. The emancipation age is 16. You're allowed to marry at 16. You're allowed to drive at 16. Those are all adult actions.
With consent? With
Excuse me?
parental consent?
Well, absolutely, but you also have
Okay.
a parental consent when they have to sign a work permit for a 16 or 17-year-old to work.
That's
So there's
why they're
still a
minor.
guardrail here.
Yeah, that's why they're a minor.
Right, I'm just saying that the
So that was
verbiage and the wording,
contradictory.
no ma'am, it's not. The wording is, we're here to harm children. That's the wording. Give me a break. I mean, these are young adults. I mean, we don't follow up. The law's got a hypocrisy to it. Right now, minors that are 16 or 17 or young adults, pick your synonym, go to school for 7 or 8 hours a day. I stopped at 12 state schools that have 25, 22-minute lunch breaks. Where's the outcry for students who stay in school for 8 hours and are only given 22 or 25 minutes? I mean, I got Airline, Benton, Donaldsonville. I can go on and on and on. I stopped. It was too easy to find it.
You have the outcry for the minors who the list who don't want to take a break and know that they have the rest of their lives to work and be an adult, and there were safeguards for being minor work? Do you have an outcry of the minors who are saying we don't want to work? We don't want to take a break?
Well, I mean, in my company in particular, that's the problem.
No, outside of your job.
Well, I mean, I didn't even
Your
I didn't
business,
even
I
volunteer.
apologize.
I didn't come up with this. I had 2 other people call me. So I have one other friend who's a franchisee, and he owns stores in Tennessee. And he's like, we don't have to do this in Tennessee. And I said, I realized after I bought 4 in Mississippi that we don't have to do it there either. I actually had a confrontation with my regional manager out there that almost ended bad until the other one raised their hand and said, Mr. Roger, I used to work in Louisiana. We don't have to do that in Mississippi, so all this extra paperwork's not necessary here. And I was like, oh, nice.
So again, it's for the business, and I'm just thinking about. We've all had. In my minor business, in my first job at 16, I do remember having to take a break. And now that I look back on it, I tell young people all the time that, you're only going to have once in a lifetime to be young. You're going to be old for your entire life if you make it that way and have adult responsibilities for the rest of your life. So I'm just looking I see the reason for the law at the time it was implemented. And thank you. I just wanted to see how you were referencing 16 and
Yes, ma'am.
As a young adult, though.
Thank you, Rep.
Thank you,
Representative
Mr.
Horton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Wilder, for bringing this. Whenever you just stay in your business, when you hire a minor, you're giving them adult duties, are you not?
I'm giving them duties that we have adult workers doing, so yes, ma'am.
And you depend on them to be responsible young men and women to be able to handle and be the face of your business, do you not?
Absolutely. I believe that the best opportunity we could have to develop a labor force is to engage as many 16, 17-year-olds into the job force to where they can learn working with each other, teamwork, responsibility, and initiative, and among others.
Absolutely. Let me tell you on these, when right now the way the law states that even if the minor doesn't want the break, wants to continue working, because don't they lose money when they are forced to take a break?
They have to be off the clock. One of
Correct.
the issues one of my locations ran into was they were just letting the minors go eat. And they said, don't worry about clocking out. We don't need you to, we'll pay you. So I've heard the profit over people thing a million times. And the fact is that if I have, my personal experience is if I have two employees, period, regardless of age, working 4 to 9:30. That's 2 5.5-hour shifts. That equates to 11 hours. I will gladly pay the full 11 hours. The state's forcing me to make both of them sit down for 30 minutes, which in turn allows me to pay 10.5 hours. So the profit over people is just ridiculous because I'm willfully wanting to pay more.
Yeah, I have a grandson that's 16. He's been working for a year, and he declines and constantly about this continuous break, and but he's not allowed to, and with the workforce being there's so many demands for our youth, for our minor kids that I want to make sure that we allow private business to operate as they see fit, and it's up to we as parents or our guardians to choose if we feel that our children are being taken advantage of or not. And because, like you said, we have help wanted signs all over Bossier Parish. And so we do have a lot of choices, but I agree with your bill. I understand the premise. I believe that government doesn't need to cross the line into private industry, which is what this bill does. And so at the appropriate time, I'd like to move favorably, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Horton. I'm going to read the green cards in now. These are in present and not wishing to speak. Michelle Shirley with the Home Builders Association, Leah Long with NFIB, Shelley Dupree with the Retailers Association, Carson Delarue with Associated Builders and Contractors, Will DeBois with Louisiana Restaurant Association, Jim Patterson with Louisiana Association of Business and Industry. And I've got a bunch here present and in opposition, not wishing to speak. And that begins with Tom Costanza, Conference of Catholic Bishops, Don Clater with Unity Table, Kyle Leger with IUOE, Nick Felton, AFL-CIO. Sorry, I'm having a rough time with this one. This one's with the Woodmere Association. Sorry, I can't make out your name here. maybe June OS. Quintel Slaughter, AFSCME. Josh Saunier with Ironworkers. Tracy Hooks with ATU. K. Andre Henry with, looks like Palmer Coalition. Not sure. It must be Power. That makes sense. Power Coalition. Cooper Ferguson with United Campus Workers. Maximo Perdomo with Heat and Frost Insulators Local. Prius Stans, AFSCME. Brian Mukasey, perhaps, with the 478. Arad Powell, Local 478. Leo Warcall with 478. Louis Rainey with AFL-CIO. Angela Adkins with 10,000 Women. Arthur Bonnier with NALC. Adrian Bennett, IATSC. Sergio Villegas, IATSE. Gary Triplett, NALC. Rick Pettit, AFCME. Donald Jones, NALC. James Hickman. Lydia Key Chapman, AFSCME. Margaret Lancaster. Troy Scott, NALC. Charlotte Lancaster. John Harold, National Association of Letter Carriers. Chad Depka, Painters Union Local. Clara Jean-Baptiste, NALC. George DeCour, ATU. Shaver Smith, ATU. Adam Dowenwind, I'm sorry, can't make that one out of you. United Comp Workers. Ronald Rosser, Labor. Matt Wood, AFL-CIO. John Sabatha, Plumbers and Steam Fitters Local. And present and willing to provide information, Christina LeBlanc with Invest in Louisiana. Erica Zucker with Workplace Justice. And it looks like Don Aravalo. And in opposition, wishing to speak, Britton Forsyth and Clico Yancey. If you could come to the table, please. Representative Phelps, did you have one for Representative Wilder?
No, I was gonna.
I'll wait.
Okay. And I'm sorry, who waived? Was that
Yancey.
Yancey? Okay. And Britton Forsyth? Britton waves.
I was just gonna ask Mr. Chairman if there was someone from Workforce Commission that could give a background on just this bill.
I don't think there was a white card for Workforce Commission. Anybody from Workforce Commission still in the room? Don't
Thank you.
believe so. All right, Representative Wilder, would you like to close? Oh, I'm sorry. Representative Chason.
Representative Wilder, quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
What are the regulations for anyone outside of this category? So let's say not 16 or 17, anyone 18 or older. What's the break format for you guys right now?
For me?
Oh, well, just in general. Any specific requirements or?
No, in general, there aren't any specific requirements, but I did bring the printout of my employee handbook from my company, and it clearly states on here that there is a section for team member breaks, which talks about all team member break periods, and then there's a complete section for minor team members. We offer the same break period to all employees. We just don't force them if they don't want to. They can take 10 minutes, they can take 20, they can take up to 30, 35, and before it becomes, okay, get back on the clock. But we don't have that issue.
Okay.
So there is no law across the board except for 16 and 17.
So for your company, I'm 16, I'm forced to take my 30-minute break after 5 hours?
Any company.
Well, no, for your company specifically, just asking. So for your company, 16, 17, because of the law, have to take a 30-minute break?
Yes, sir.
Mandatory. 18?
You're offered the same option, you just have the ability as an adult to decline.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? All right, closing. Have anything else?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a free market bill. Like we said earlier when Rep. Phelps was talking, there is a parental approval aspect to a 16 or 17-year-old working. It's called a work permit. So the parent knows the kid is working. The parent can engage their son or daughter and verify and counsel their kids if there is an issue. I think for me, I simply believe that our young adults, 16 and 17, have an absolute capability to discern, just as someone who's 18, whether they want to work somewhere if they aren't treated fairly. I think that's pretty simple. The last thing I'd say is that I find it interesting that nobody really wants to challenge the high schools that have kids in a classroom for 8 hours, give them a 22-minute lunch break, and some of these kids go to football practice for 3.5 hours after. But in a school system, it's okay to not only violate the 5-hour law that I'm trying to repeal, but you also violate a second part of it after 9 hours. And I'd argue that a football practice is way more intensive than making a sandwich at Subway. So in closing, I guess the bill is a positive move for Louisiana's workforce development for both team members and businesses. Team members will have more employment opportunities in the 16 and 17-year-old category for those who want to work. That's what this is about. Not many people want to work right now, and the ones that do, we're just telling them to sit down and forfeit a big chunk of their paycheck when they don't want to. It's less burdensome and obsolete regulations on a business, which is currently a disincentive to hire this age group. So removing a disincentive automatically becomes, by default, an incentive, to a degree at least. So the 47-year-old law I'm referring to is a feel-good law that is absolutely obsolete in 2024. So I'd ask you guys to consider a favorable passage, joining me in a small step, which is one of many, to remove some barriers and obstacles to help grow our workforce in this state.
Members, Vice Chair Horton has made a motion to report House Bill 156 favorably. Do I hear any objections? To which Representative Phelps has objected. A vote yes means to wish to report the bill favorably, and a vote no means you do not wish to report the bill favorably. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
What's wrong with the mic? Yes, sir. Chairman Cruz?
Yes.
Yes. Representative Bamberg? Yes. Representative Chazon? Yes. Representative DeWitt? Yes. Representative Eccles? Yes. Representative Glorioso? Yes. Representative Horton? Yes. Representative Larberdane? No. Representative McMakin? Yes. Representative Mellering? Representative Mina? No. Representative Phelps? No. Representative Tarver? Yes. Representative Walters? Representative Wilder? Yes. 10 yeas and 3 nays.
House Bill 156 is reported favorably.